Welcome back. You're watching Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Carl Lahara. Let's continue on with one of the big headlines of this week, the investigation into a deadly shooting that happened at a high school in Georgia. Investigators are still unraveling what led up to that deadly shooting this week. Now, the suspect's father also being held responsible, accused of negligence in allowing his son access to the gun used in the attack. This comes after police spoke to him a year earlier about threats his son may have made online. To discuss this even further, I'd like to bring into the conversation now former FBI agent Scott Duffey. Scott, good to see you on this weekend. I'd like to start with the question that's really on everybody's minds is, could this have been prevented given the fact that the FBI was tipped off about Colt Gray, that is the suspected shooter? But first, walk us through this process. What happens when the FBI puts someone on their radar?
Yeah, good evening, Carl. Thank you for having me on this evening. So, I'm of the belief that any one of these shootings can be prevented, and it's a lot more in depth than, let's say, simply going to the house as was seen by law enforcement a year ago. It is in my experience, and of course, in these type of active shooter situations where a high percentage of these where the shooter or the potential shooter is foretelling, maybe not the day or the time, but reaching out somehow a call for help that, hey, I'm planning this, fantasizing about this or something, and ultimately looking for someone to step in. So in this particular situation, as we were made aware that the FBI received the tip. Now, prior to the Parkland shooting in 2017, the FBI often, like any other agency, receives tips, intelligence, perhaps certain crimes that are taking place. And the FBI tries to sift through these, analyze these, send them to the right agency if the FBI is not the right agency to actually continue an investigation. And after the Parkland shooting, they realized there were a lot of missteps, and there was um, an audit, and as a result, that the FBI realized that they had to have a better handle of this national call center, if you will, and so thereby did a complete overhaul of their complaint center and trying to have a better grasp of the analysis of actual calls coming in. And of course, it's not a 911 center. It's not meant to deal with emergencies. And ultimately, if someone is seeing a crime in progress, they're advised, hang up and dial 911. You'll get your local 911 dispatch. So in this case, a tip comes out. Typically, somebody receives information, believes that it should be looked into. Perhaps they're not aware of where this person is. In this case, I believe it was through some gaming um, platform. And so in Delaware, where I worked up until 2018, we had a quasi task force that ultimately tried to vet through these complaints. And there would be a call that comes in and says, hey, I believe such an individual may live in your area, or the complainant lives in our area and has no clue where the other individual lives. So ultimately, a complaint similar to that, hey, this person made a threat, made perhaps a veiled threat against a school and should be further looked into. So the FBI takes a look, identifies the individual, and forwards that information to the local authorities there in Georgia. And of course, as we now know, that Georgia had responded to the shooter's residence, spoke with him and his father, and the rest is history. Where what, if anything, fell through. Now, of course, law enforcement goes. They're looking to see if they can make an arrest. If there's probable cause for an arrest, they would have made an arrest. But often these type of tips, there's not enough to go and figure out if this is a real identifiable threat that can be prosecuted on the threat alone. For example, some sort of terroristic threatening. They would look to see if there is any dangers that they could see within the home. For example, perhaps the individual comes clean and says, "Yeah, I'm going through some mental episode. I want to do this," or something to give law enforcement a further tool to either make an arrest, a detention, to perhaps remove guns, to forward the information to a mental health clinician, any one of the above. And so here, yes, the individual, as I have gone in the past, to interview similar type cases where an individual gaming with another individual might say something that says, "Hey, I'm gonna destroy you like I'm gonna destroy a school," and that's a comment that is forever solidified in that gaming console. And so law enforcement gets aware of that, identifies that individual, and how often I've arrived there and I will see the face of the individual that, first of all, they can't believe that law enforcement is in front of them. You can tell that they have true remorse. You can tell that there's no mental health situations going on. They're confessing to how stupid I was to have made such a poor comment in light of what is happening with these school shootings, and so thereby there will be a recording of the account. Typically, if not a search warrant, a consent search to say, "Hey, I just want to satisfy everything and ensure that there are no guns, etc., and that there's no actual threat." And so often that is what happens. And in this case, I imagine the individuals, I think, even denied the fact that he was the one. He even said it. Um, and then, of course, the father did make a note as I listened to that body camera that probably went over the heads of law enforcement with regards to, hey, we have these discussions of school shootings, which is interesting to me, but it is hindsight. And so ultimately, the FBI passes that information in real time, if possible. Law enforcement went there. I would say 9 times out of 10 in such a situation, an individual will be so scared that whatever was going through their head, they realize, wow, I caught a break here. How stupid was I? And then of course, parents being involved will say, hey, let's have a discussion. What is this? And it could have played out in many regards to where perhaps some mental health um, support should have been afforded at the time. Perhaps looking forward, cases like this will be reviewed and say, okay, we have to really take a second look to ensure that if someone is idealizing, that it's going to become actionable, that somehow we can, that being law enforcement, mental health, the parents, loved ones, schools are totally made aware and can intercede and perhaps break that cycle of this is the path that I'm going down, and then look at what we have, yet another unfortunate tragic school shooting. So yes, I do believe ultimately they should and can be prevented.
Scott, the question now is what comes next? And also, especially given the fact that Colt Gray was on the radar of the FBI, even though they did make that appearance at his home, they did speak with him and his father. Ultimately, they felt that the situation was fine at the moment, but it wasn't. It did turn into something very
Right.
tragic in which people died. So, really, when we look at that process, does the FBI still continue to watch Colt Gray closely, or really anybody that they've been tipped off from?
Yeah, and let me be clear that it is my belief that the FBI received the tip So whoever made that tip, what we call a complainant, um, provided that tip to the FBI, whether an online tip, a 1-800 number tip, in any platform that they received that tip. They then do their analysis or assessment of the actual complaint and then forward it to a necessary office. So, for example, the call center um, is situated in another part of the United States is going to realize, okay, we need to forward this to the FBI office that is situated to where law enforcement actually needs to get to. And it's possible that the local law enforcement office, the resident agency, or the headquarters city then provides that information to their local counterparts because it is a juvenile. And and so the federal government typically does not arrest juveniles. And so thereby you have a very young individual who alerted somebody to make them nervous enough to where they have to reach out to law enforcement. And so local law enforcement, the jurisdiction, I believe the Grays were living at the time, got visited by their local sheriff's office as a result of that tip that came in through the national FBI tip line. And so they did what any law enforcement would do when they get information. If there's actionable probable cause where they can make an arrest, they would make an arrest. But if there's not probable cause, there's not enough information for them to make an arrest or continue on that investigation. Then at that point, they believe from speaking with the father, from assessing, I believe, with their own eyes and ears of the shooter, that that whatever it is that they were investigating, they believe was resolved at that point. And of course, um, we're all wrong in that, right? This did result. If I remember, it was back in May of 2023 that the tip came out, and so shortly thereafter, law enforcement is visiting and speaking with him and the parent. That all of a sudden, just over a year later, that the same person where a tip came out about a school shooting actually followed through on that ideology. And so yes, what can be in place? Perhaps law enforcement from federal down to local will assess when we receive such a tip, what can we do further? Come up with some sort of policies that if there's not enough to make an arrest, where you can remove a person, detain them, perhaps do a search warrant or for any guns, and try to go further into their digital media, their phone, laptops, and whatnot to see if they're actually searching for information. Where this is not just something kids say stupid things. We all say stupid things, and we say them in a vacuum. And then, of course, in this whole gaming world and social media, we put out information and it's not all meant to be what it is when you actually hear it or see it. And so thereby does it rise to the level of, for example, a terroristic threat where somebody says, I intend to hurt you, I want to hurt you, and I'm coming to get you. Well, that threat alone is actionable. In other words, law enforcement, if they can find a probable cause, can make an arrest. And so thereby there is that break in that cycle, so to speak, to where a person can then be evaluated. What is going on? Do a deep dive into their past and say, is this a cry for help? Is this a call for help? And will this be something that will come out to be something we regret later because we didn't do enough? So I do believe as a result of this, there will be further action. In other words, law enforcement, not only there in Georgia, but everywhere, because we're always trying to learn from not only our past mistakes, but even when law enforcement did everything, but perhaps there can be something more. And that's what I think communities across the nation are trying to deal with. How can we do more with the information we're receiving? And if we can't make an arrest on scene because something hasn't taken place, how do we break that cycle for someone that we believe is going more than is going beyond the ideology and the fantasy of wanting to go out and commit this act of violence to where they're actually searching, researching, and then of course the ultimate being able to be accessible to such weapons.
Scott, we're going to have to leave it at that there, but we do appreciate your time that you took today to discuss this even further because again, so many questions are left here and really about what happens next and how this can be prevented in the future. A terrible tragedy, but lessons that can be learned to hopefully apply and make sure that there is more preventative measures, as you had just been mentioning here, to prevent this from happening. But Scott Duffey, former FBI agent. We appreciate your time here at Live Now from Fox. Take care.
Thank you.
We do want to step away for a quick commercial break. Before I do that, though, I would like to put up a statement released a little while ago from the White House. It's a statement on gun violence posted to their X account. It says this: guns are the #1 killer of children in America. It's time to ban assault weapons and high capacity magazines, require safe storage of firearms, enact universal background checks, end immunity for gun manufacturers, and pass a national red flag law. We'll be right back.